Welcome back to the event show. I'm Sally Porteous, and this is the podcast for anyone who lives and breathes events. Whether you're agency side, in-house, freelancing, or the person who somehow ends up running the community festival every year, this episode will resonate. Today, I'm joined by Nadine Cove, an event professional who has worn a lot of hats in this industry, from owning her own agency to freelancing in the Greenfields of Tasmania. In this episode, we get into the identity question, what we call ourselves, what labels actually mean, and how the lines between roles keep shifting. We also talk about the realities of delivering events, scope creep, supplier relationships, AV and risk decisions, and the governance and budget pressures that are increasingly shaping what's possible to pull off. Man, we get into a lot. Because we also get into what makes in-person experiences genuinely great and what we might be losing when we settle for less. It's a wide-ranging conversation, and I think there's something in it for everyone who works in this space. Nadine, welcome to the event show. But before we begin, I have to ask, you mentioned to me before we hit record that you've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. What is it about a good podcast that keeps you hooked?
So my daughter tells me that if you feel the urge to comment or interject into a conversation on a podcast, then they're nailing the podcast. So I thought that that was a really interesting insight, which of course you can't. I spend the hour or so in the car going, I want to add to this. I want to agree. I want to disagree, or I want to. But what I was going to say that this particular one that I'm listening to, I agree with you about talking over somebody and how do you stop them and go, hey, that was a really cool point. Can we just kind of spend more time on that? They've mastered a thing called the talking stick, so that no one talks until that person who's got the talking stick says whatever their piece is, and then they can all ask questions after that. But they have a producer who's probably got some pretty excellent equipment, I would imagine, and some pretty good experience and capability at just focusing on audio editing, etc. So yeah, we do our best, don't we?
We do. Yeah, it's so interesting that body language, and I guess this could flow into our conversation, is the whole body language and being in person. There's so many more cues, isn't there? Like when we're at a live in-person event, there's so many more cues that are available to us than if we're in a virtual event. That's so
Oh,
interesting.
I agree. And look, of course, during COVID, everyone did the pivot. I mean, I think I got dizzy from the pivot. We pivoted so many times. I didn't know what was up or down or in or out or front or back. But I can understand the inclination to resist attending an in-person event. Like, I get it. I have that too. But hybrid events, they don't work for me. Other people may have mastered them really well, but I certainly haven't. I think we spend so much time worrying about whether or not the people on the screen are included that we forget about the people in the room, or we do the complete opposite and we inadvertently focus on the people in the room. Or I've also had it very amusing where the tech's not been great, and then there's a room full of people with laptops in front of them and then a screen full of people. And I go, what are we trying to achieve here? Like,
Yeah.
this just,
I know. I find that so interesting. I went to a conference last week before last, and the recordings were available. Like I could pay extra for the recordings to have the recordings for 12 months, which of course I did because I always had FOMO. But I spent the majority of the time actually at the conference in the room, but they had very long breaks, very, very long breaks in the afternoon because they were trying to run workshops at the same time. And of course, if you hadn't booked for a workshop, you had nothing to do. So there was like an hour and a half break between afternoon tea and then the next plenary session if you weren't in a workshop. So I ended up going, oh, look, I'm going to go home. I watched them online when I got home, and the experience was so flat. Like it just like because it was at the Brisbane Powerhouse, which is a purpose-built theatre. So the sound system, the screen, everything is incredible. Like it's a performance space. And so when I'm watching it on my little laptop at home, I'm not
Yeah.
getting the same sound experience. I'm not getting the same, I don't know, the same visceral response to what was going on stage. I found it really interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, and I guess movies and things are really struggling with that. Show up and see a movie in person, cinemas, their numbers seem to be, certainly when I go, and I actually go quite regularly. We've always been very devoted to movies in terms of screen-based content as a family. My mum and dad were very into movies and I was as well. And I encouraged our children to do that because obviously I could manage and control that content. I could pre-edit it. I knew exactly what the content was going to be that they were exposed to. And I guess maybe that was my version of raising my kids with a screen. But I think that they took away so many lessons, those friendship lessons and that helping others and self-sacrifice and all those things. But there was nothing that compared to either a live show or seeing a movie on the big screen. And I still feel like that. But I guess that's the cinema industry's worry. They still keep pumping out the movies, but the difference between, I just saw Devil Wears Prada at the movies with my mum, and I'll probably watch it again because I just like the movie, which will be at home. And we're not really big screen people at home. We've got average size screen, but the experience will be different. And the concentration that's required, kind of demanded at the movies, or like you were saying in a conference, I still do see people on their phones, but it's very quick. It's not that kind of scrolling and watching at the same time. It might be putting out a fire or troubleshooting something that's happening at work, but they're really, and whether that's a peer group pressure or a guilt thing, or you like to think as a conference organizer, just nailed the speaker so they can't turn away.
You know what? I've just been to the movies myself, and that's a really interesting thing you've raised, because I wonder, would more people go to the movies if it was an individual experience? Because what do I find myself doing at the movies is having to consider everybody else in the cinema. So I don't want to go on my phone because I don't want the person behind me having to have the glary bright light of my phone, for example. Or I take my granddaughter to see Toy Story, and she's 8, and luckily we're in Toy Story because she wants to talk through the whole movie. But so does every other kid in the
Yes.
cinema as well. So that's okay for that movie. But you have to sit there and quietly watch the film. So it's not actually, you know what? I don't think the issue is actually going out and going to the movies. It's having to conform to this behavior where you have to sit quietly, not bother others, eat quietly, don't rustle your packet of chips, don't
Yeah.
talk to each other because you're not allowed, because part of a movie is discussing what's going on in the movie, right?
Oh, 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if any of that relates to our events. Like, are people coming? Like, I went to that conference, the conference I went to week before last. I actually challenged myself because I'm a prolific networker normally, not so much this year because I really kind of overdid it last year and went to a lot of things. But I went to that and challenged myself not to meet anyone. I went to I said to myself, I just want to immerse in this material. I don't want to be influenced by anyone's opinion. I just want to take it in because it was not in my field. The room was like traditional designers, graphic designers, product designers, packaging, marketing, all of that kind of design field, not experience. Well, I suppose there was one or two experienced designers that I met, but traditional design people.
Yeah.
So it was more, I wanted creative inspiration was what I went for, what I was looking for. And I wanted to just hang out with people who were doing really creative work and finding the time to do that creative work. So I challenged myself not to meet anyone. And so I found myself trying to find space in the room where the person beside me wasn't going to talk to me. And they just put a sticker on my lanyard They put a sticker on my name tag that identified that I was there by myself and therefore willing to connect. And she didn't ask me before she put it on me. And I was like, oh, I don't actually want people to know that. I didn't want people to
No,
know that I was on my own, and I didn't want to connect with anyone.
but that's a really major sales point though, isn't it? Like a selling point for conferences. Networking. Like, what are you going to get out of the conference? Why do you want to come? To network. Like, that's a massive,
Because people
massive.
claim that's what they want, but I don't know. I don't know that they do, because I had maybe 2 people over 3 whole days, including an after party. I only had 3 people approach me and proactively engage in a conversation with me out of 1,200 people a day.
Yeah. And look, I did so much networking in the 80s. I'm over networked. I'm so bad at it these days. I just small talk and correcting the way that people pronounce my name. Like, it's
Okay,
Nadine.
let's go there. Let's go there. How? What, am I pronouncing it wrong?
No. It's just Nadine. Like, it's so simple, but I think I just got so over networked that this is way before COVID, way before we had any permission to not network or hang around with people anymore. And look, just to be clear, I am definitely not antisocial. I'm definitely antisocial this year. My dad died in October and we're reeling from that. So can feel myself very inwardly focused.
Oh, wow.
Don't have the
Sorry to hear
same.
that. That's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, and it was completely unexpected. It just was here one day and gone the next. I mean,
Oh, mine was the same. Weird. That's really interesting. My dad also passed not last October, 10 years ago now. More than that, actually, but it was October and it was unexpected. He just, yeah, went to bed one night and didn't wake up the next morning.
we've just started a olive business. So we have grow olives, and my dad was helping my husband at one of the farms, and they had just had a beautiful morning tea together and a chit chat. And dad was, I mean, he was in his 80s. He was definitely slower than in his 50s or 60s, but he had said to my husband, I'm going to stay at the machine, and they were mulching at the time, and you can drag the branches up to me. And my husband literally turned around to go to get a big branch about 2 trees away and turned back, and my dad was in the long grass looking at the blue sky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I can definitely feel myself being very inwardly focused. I delivered an event, a big festival about 4 weeks later. I dropped a couple of balls, nothing that anyone would notice and nothing that would put anyone at risk, just a couple of details that is not like me at all. I am an overachieving perfectionist, but it was
You're in good company.
enough. Actually, my girlfriend rang me last night, who also it's interesting listening to you about the conference, because I met her 14 years ago on a job that we were working on, a workplace that we were working together. And she has since become one of my closest friends, and also she's a graphic designer with a fine arts degree, and she's a ceramicist and an exceptional photographer. And so she does all of my design work. There's no other options for me. Like, she's just the bee's knees as far as that goes, and lots of other things. But I was saying something to her about something last night, and she was giving me this big lecture about, you don't question yourself. You are good at this. You are good at that. You are amazing at doing blah, blah, blah. And you need those people in your corner, don't you? That kind of give you those little boosts. But yeah, in terms of, sorry, I think I lost my train of thought then, but just going back to the networking, I definitely stopped feeling like I should do that. And I know that I know of friends in the tourism industry, because obviously my background's tourism, events and hospitality and communications and media now. So I've kind of got a number of bows, but I'm reluctant to really put that out there in a way, because I don't want it to sound like I'm a master of many and an expert at none. So they are very intrinsically sort of connected, I think, those four
Yeah,
industries.
I think
But
we all float. I think we all float between all of those things. I just want to go back to, you were talking about, you delivered events 4 weeks afterwards after you lost your dad.
yeah, I did.
The
Yeah.
reason I want to go back there, I've just sent my newsletter out this week in relation to burnout.
I read
Did
that.
that?
Yep.
Yeah, and it had me reflecting on some experience that I've had on burnout. And similar to you, when my dad passed, I was on a gig that I was on a job that by the end of the job I had delivered 53 events over 3 weeks across 3 states of Australia.
Oh,
And I only got the gig in August, and it was deliverable in December, and I had to not only program the whole thing, I had to connect everyone, deliver, I had to do everything. And so I got the gig in the August for deliverability in December. My dad passed in the October. I took a week off to look after that whole process. A great family, great brothers that obviously did lots, and sisters-in-laws that did lots of things as well. But I was actually grateful to be so busy, because I didn't have time to wallow in it, if that makes sense. And I do wonder if that was a good idea.
no, I think, Sally, that we're both probably very similar in that respect. I had a little bit of time. So I have sort of two, like any or many event managers, and particularly in this economy, I have a couple of gigs. And so I did have time off from one of those, particularly just like you, just to help cross the T's and dot the I's around the things that needed to be done. I've got a sister and she was amazing as well. And my mom was just in shock, really. So obviously she did what she could. But look, I, I actually didn't even stop to kind of think about it, I guess. Not, I don't mean my dad dying. I mean, I think it just, I knew that any event, it's like a train coming at you, isn't it? Like there are, depending on your lead time, like I'm working on something at the moment that was going to be for October this year, but it's been postponed to October next year, which I'm super grateful for. But basically the train hasn't stopped. It's just slowed down and added a few more stations.
See,
So,
I think that's worse. Yeah, because I don't know. I've had things that have had really long lead times, and I've had things that have had really short lead times. And I just feel like I'm stressed longer when it's a longer lead time. Yeah, but I feel not stressed, but I feel the pressure from the minute the contract is signed. I feel the pressure, and I
oh,
start
yeah,
working on it even mentally. Even
yeah.
if it's 2 years away, I'm working on it. And if I can't move forward, like I've got a couple on at the moment that I'm waiting for decisions, so I can't do anything else. I wake up every day thinking, what can I do to take the next step while I wait for this information to come? So
Yes, what jobs can I preempt in the meantime that aren't going to be, because the tricky one with the October one was that even though it was a really relatively short lead time, because I was aware of that, I'd got cracking and put way more personal weekend hours into it just to make sure that I felt really comfortable with where we were at. And I then, which is fine. And I am actually really pleased that we've postponed it, but you've then got to unwind all that and then
yeah.
rewind it. So yeah, I don't know what's ideal. It's funny actually, because I delivered for the same organization. I delivered an event where I was hired in October, I guess officially onboarded at the beginning of November. I was given like a working group's wish list that was pages and pages long, and nothing had been put in place, and they wanted to deliver it in February. And I think I'm the only person in the world that actually went, oh, thank goodness COVID forced me to postpone this, because I just didn't I just didn't know how I would be able to satisfy sort of the wish list. As it turned out, we postponed to October of that same year, and I delivered kind of like you, although mine was only in one state, but it was a 2-day event and I delivered 94 activations in and around the area into that in
wow.
the 2 days. And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And it landed really, really well. Some things worked better than others. We tried lots of things, but largely that was very successful. So I was really grateful to be able to have delivered that.
So do you normally work by yourself, Nadine, or do you have a team or other freelancers or contractors that work with you? How
No.
do you operate?
So when I first started years and years ago, I did have a team, and then our family, so my husband and children, we moved a couple of states, and I kind of wound up actually. But events are sort of like
Come
glitter.
and find you again.
I know, event organizing, like you think you've got all the glitter off you, and then you find a little bit in the, I don't know.
What a great analogy. I love it. Yeah, everyone's stuck all over us.
It is. It is. So yeah, I sort of continued just to do some events, and I'm a very literal event manager. So if I have a theme or I come up with a theme, then I just kind of cannot leave any rock under any string unpulled. And so I did. So I thought I was getting out of it, and I kind of didn't, but I didn't grow a team. And then I got down here and just freelance on my own, and depending on who like what the event is, then I inherit a team basically. And so most of the contracting events that I've done have been with festivals down here. So yeah, I can usually borrow the ops team, and then I'll bring in, there's like couple of people that I've collected, I guess, along the way that make my job easier, and they're very good at what they do, and I'll just bring them in when I need them.
Yeah, nice, nice. And so do you prefer that way of working, or
Yeah,
like do you think it's a time of life thing, or
look, yeah, I don't want to ever try really, really hard to live with no regrets. We're the Millers, so no regrets is a real family joke.
I love that movie.
Me
What a great movie, eh?
We do too. But so I try really hard never to dwell. I don't. If I had have stayed in events, I imagine where I might have been. So stayed completely at the level that we were as a company in New South Wales, but it just wasn't the path. And there's a part of me that wonders whether I could have got cracking when I got to Tassie and sort of recreated that. But I think in all honesty, and I never really put this in words, but I think what we had in New South Wales was like the perfect storm, and there was all these pieces that fit together. And then that wasn't something that I, for lots of different reasons, would have been able to recreate. So yeah, but I mean, and it's funny actually because event management, and I was thinking about this ahead of our conversation, was, I don't know if it was accidental. I sort of started as a GM in a hotel PA, and then often in that time, PAs were like, I'm not really sure what you're doing, but can you organize this? And then that kind of snowballs.
Yeah.
And it was sort of where I ended up with my start. But I don't think I ever really set out to do event management, but I definitely have never been able to not do it.
Yeah, same. I kind of hung a shingle. I only hung my shingle 2011. So not that long ago. I know it's still a few years ago, but considering I had been, like, I was in 2011, what's that, 15 years ago, I was 45. So at 45, I decided what grown up Sally looked like. And that's when I hung the shingle. But a few years later, when I reflected back on every single job I've ever had, I've been the events person in that job. And yes, I was a PA for many, many years. And every company I've worked in, I have organized the events. whether they be company Christmas parties or strategic planning days or any of that kind of thing, it was always me that organized them, and I really enjoyed it. And I still really do love it. I think there's a lot more pressure now, though,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot more pressure on an event organizer now to get bums on seats. And I'm finding that a little bit hard, both from a client point of view, but also my own personal achievement point of view. Like if I do an event and I'm just responsible for, not just, but I'm responsible for logistics, like it's my job to build it and it's the client's job to get people there. And if they don't get people there, I'm finding I feel responsible that they're not getting people there. And I'm sitting there going, what could I have done? I could have done more to get people here. But then I have to keep reminding myself that wasn't my job. I'm not an event marketer. But more and more of us, I think, are being asked or expected that we will also drive attendance. How does
Yeah.
that sit with you in your festival space? Where
Yeah. Look, festival wise, actually, I'm not, I probably drive that as a KPI for myself in terms of attendance. So I'm very lucky, I guess, in that way. I don't know if lucky is the right word, but just because
that's my point, though. I feel also that like there's two sides to it. Sometimes the client expects that that's the responsibility of the organizer as well, but 100% of the time, I feel like it's my responsibility.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and I completely agree with you in terms of that. And I think it is also that blurred line, isn't it, between and you see this with designers particularly. There might be a job ad for a design manager, but then when you've read through, like my girlfriend sent me copies of ads that she's been looking at for possible jobs, and it lists like comms and media and marketing, and I'm like, she's capable of doing all that, but then they're not her areas of expertise. Once upon a time, she just would have been expected to be briefed and deliver on the design. And then another team would have taken on those other roles and another team would have supported them. So there is this definite push. And I think because we've got so many, I guess, so many assets available to us now to streamline those things, you have to wonder if we are learning to do all the jobs okay, are we losing the expertise as well? I know that's not quite what you were asking me, but I've often wondered.
No, I agree with you.
That.
And that was part of the discussion actually at the conference as well. I was so inspired at that actually by their ability, a lot of people who talked, their ability to just stick to their job, just like meet a brief and not go outside the brief, just meet, like they're very clear at coming, like accepting the brief and then sticking to it. I found that really inspiring because that's one of the biggest challenges I have. I know scope creep is one of the hardest things for us to deal with. And it comes from a position of we want the best outcome for everybody. And if we can see that that outcome is not going to be achieved unless these things happen, and if no one's doing those things, well, then we'll pick it up.
Yes,
like, we are masters of everything. I really do. I don't think we're jack of all trades, master of none. I think we are master of all trades and jack of none, because everyone I know in this industry are exceptional creators, producers, marketers, logistics. Like, they're just so good at everything. But I also believe that that has a lot to do with why we tend to get burnt out as well.
Oh,
And
yes.
crash
Yeah.
and leave
Yeah.
the industry in its entirety.
My burnout probably came way ahead of the curve, actually. I remember all I wanted at one stage was, so my expertise was Greenfield sites. Greenfield sites are super, super exciting, particularly when I was younger and had the energy. They were just.
So can you tell our listeners, explain a Greenfield site to anyone who doesn't know what that is?
Literally nothing. There's nothing there except a paddock, perhaps. Or so anything that and these were private events. These were all private events, so not public open events. But anything that somebody coming to whatever this was, whether it was a a big party or a corporate had to be shipped in and made to work. Also depended, we're not talking about kind of a paddock festival that didn't have a level of expectation in terms of its luxury either. So many of the events were very high in terms of expectation of comfort and sophistication, etc. So it wasn't just a matter of buying in a few portaloos and we were good to go. Nothing like that at all. And I loved it. Absolutely, absolutely loved it. But I did get every now and then, it's typical human behavior, isn't it? I think, oh, I'd love a venue. Maybe we should just get a venue. And then we did end up getting a venue. And I remember the night. I remember just delivered an event, and I'd worked a long time with the organizer. They'd put a lot into it. And they had actually produced, it was for an artist, and they'd produced some art that had been inspired by a design that they'd seen. And we had this as part of the styling for the event, which I'll come back to. That's actually, I need to tell you a story about that. But at the end, staff were saying to me, what are we keeping? What are we disposing of? And I remember saying to the organizer, can you clarify? And they said, oh, keep one, but otherwise throw everything out. And I'm like, I can't do events anymore. I remember it so vividly. I just went, first of all, having my own venue, by the way, was absolutely the wrong thing to do. It was so boring. I was not inspired like I was at any time before. I love troubleshooting. Can we get trucks in? Can we get cars in? Where's people going to park? I need electricity. Is that generator going to be enough? Like the amount of intel or intellectual property that I have on generators is like at time, like it was just, and you need a backup fuel. And like it was just, these are private events too. So we're not talking about a Glastonbury or a big festival in a paddock. These were all the little intricate things that I just loved to consider, and all the while not compromising any standards. But yeah, got the venue. I was still doing Greenfield site events, but obviously it made financial sense to be doing events in a venue as well. And
did you buy a venue or lease a venue?
We did, yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, anyway, I remember speaking to that client that night, and I just went, can't do this anymore. I can't. I'm adding to landfill. I feel really sick about this. I found all of a sudden this overwhelm with regards to waste. And this was right at the beginning of the curve with regards to the movements on leftover event food being refocused, like food waste being refocused into areas where that was needed. So that any of those facilities really existed at that time. There might have been one just getting started, but that would have been about it. We had tried to pass on some untouched leftover kitchen prepared food at various stages to like local aged care facilities and that type of thing, but there was still and obviously I respect the safety, and God forbid anything would happen that would compromise anybody, and that was never the intention. It was always just that this is just silly to have this waste and it's just going to go into the bin. Mostly we would actually give it to any of the staff that had animals and they'd take it home with them.
Yeah.
So we tried our hardest to make sure, but yeah, I remember this was just going to be landfill, and yeah, it was done. And yeah, that was the beginning of the end for me at that time.
So what's the styling story?
Oh yeah. So when I was really full on in events, yes, like the logistics, I'm exceptionally good at I'm very observant, spend all my time like you would, dotting every I, crossing every T, anticipating every possibility and how we would deal with that. And then when I'm faced with something that I just hadn't or couldn't have anticipated, calm under fire, had no problem with that at all. But It's actually the styling, which is really interesting to tell you that story after I also told you that I was done with the styling because it was a waste. But the event styling was really something that that I don't have a regret, but if I was going to have ever continued proactively pursuing at the level in which I was working at that time, event styling would have been my jam and
Oh,
100%.
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the opposite for me. Like, I really like it. I really love styling a space, but I don't have the ability to see it first, then do it. I have to do it and then move things. So, like, if I'm moving furniture around my house, like, I have to move it first and then go, no, I don't like it there. I'm going to have to move it over here. And eventually it turns out amazing. But you can't do that in a function venue gala. You can't put all the table centers out and go, no, I don't like the color of that.
No. No, well, my ability to visualize, and I don't think I've lost that at all, is I mean, yeah, I'm really proud of it. Like, I think that I can interpret, visualize, and transform really well. And funny enough, when I first sort of accidentally ended up in events and I was one of 4 organizers in a company, and I would obviously do my job to the best of my ability, but the theming and the styling side was always where I excelled more than the other 3, and the other 3 were exceptionally talented, but they they would recognize that as well. My events just
Mm.
went that little bit further. Theirs were great, amazing and great and expected. Mine were always just that left step outside
Yeah.
the box.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
So
and
tell me, what's your most favorite event? What's the one that sticks in your mind as your event that you created that you absolutely loved and would do again in a heartbeat?
oh, that is so hard. I I don't really know the
I know it's
answer.
like that question. Yeah, it's like the question of what kind of events do you do? I do all sorts. I love your niche. I love that Greenfield niche.
Oh, I
That's
loved, yeah. I really, really, really loved Greenfield. I did do a really big event with someone who trusted me with an exceptional level of trust. But even then, and look, the event was incredible, and I would need a whole other podcast to talk to you about this event. But I, even at the end of that, Sally, I still, a couple of days later, because I was like beyond exhausted, but I still had things that I had mucked up. Like, I put the kitchen, it was way ahead, right at the curve of clear marquees, and I put
oh yeah.
and so we did 2 structures for the main event, and I happened to also build a village, and as I said, I won't even go into it, but the 2 structures for the main event, we actually had to bring in an engineer, and this is a very long time ago, and so the engineer had to help us work out. We had a bridge connecting the 2 structures as well, so it was just unbelievable. A bridge off the ground, by the way, so not just a covered walkway, and we did a clear, so it was meant to be kind of this contrast of one clear and then one black, and again, black. No one was using black marquees at the time, but we wanted it to go from day to night.
Yeah,
But
nice.
of course, I put the poor kitchen in a completely clear roofed tent, and I'm like, baked our poor people. I was just
Yeah.
devastated. Didn't even think about it, and got swept up in the excitement of being able to do this event. But yeah, I didn't know actually if I've really got a favorite, because they're, like you said, they're all so different. I think that they're very hard to compare as well. So, and they don't, sure, big budgets are amazing, but they don't all need big budgets to be amazing either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a hard question that I just don't have the answer for. Some come
So
to
I'm going to
mind.
ask you another curly question.
Okay.
Could you give me or give our listeners, so ideally our freelancers out there, people who are possibly doing this as a side hustle or they're running a small business and they're the lead on everything, what is your top tip for our listeners to have their own success in this space? Like, are you seeing anything currently in the market or currently in the environment where something's missing that someone can tap into? Or is it business as usual? Do we need to go back to 20 years ago and how we were doing things before? Like, I'm kind of reflecting myself on the experience. When we started this conversation, we were talking about the experience one gets when they go to an event. And so for me, I'm kind of I don't know how many events you go to, but I go to a lot, and I'm starting to find at those events that I go to a bit of a lack of attention to detail on the whole experience. So yes, they're delivering on what was promised on the flyer, but they're not creating an environment or an experience. They're not taking me out of my day to day and immersing me in their experience. So for me, I think that's an opportunity for event managers today, is to look back on some of those immersive experiences and understand how you can take your audience on a journey, take them out of their day-to-day life and really like exceed expectations, not just meet them. I feel like that's kind of missing at the moment. And that comes down to costs and resources and all that kind of thing. And I get it. But I that's something I think where people can make a difference for themselves in the market right now. What do you think? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, that sort of transformational is challenging. And I think for myself, I was at an event recently and I admired. Well, it was really interesting. I had to keep putting on I had to take one hat off and put on another hat. So I try really hard to go to an event or a whatever it is, an event, a conference, a festival, whatever, and not actually be an event manager because
Oh, good luck.
I think that for such a long time being in hospitality, tourism and events and being so customer service focused, because that's the era in which I was trained, it's very, very easy to sit in judgment and actually lose sight of the reason that you're, at this particular occasion and
Yeah.
lose the enjoyment and not have the full appreciation of the enjoyment of the day or the night or whatever it is. But I think I kept thinking there's this really interesting balance that we now have to navigate between risk assessment and the responsibility of the people attending the event for being grown-ups and adults and making wise decisions, and the event organizer doing everything that they possibly can. And I've actually got somebody that because one of the events that I work on is kind of high activity. It's completely voluntary though. So you don't pay. It's not like you pay to go on a ride where that transaction is contractual, whatever the contract is, but it is contractual. This one is completely voluntary. And I do have a very sage person who I speak to who's not in events at all. And I will say to him, okay, but should I be worried? Should I have disclaimers? Should I? And he'll kind of talk me through. He doesn't say yay or nay to any of those particular questions, but we talk it through. And I'm really grateful that I've got somebody like him that I can bounce these sort of questions off, because I feel like, and I don't know whether it's just that kind of getting older. I mean, I remember when I used to fly all the time, like for my job, I'd fly everywhere and I loved flying, absolutely loved it. And then when I had kids, I suddenly became really anxious flying, whether they were on the plane or not. And I'm like, what's going on? I can't understand this. And then as I got older and I flew on my own and the kids obviously could not have to go with me wherever I was going and I was flying for work, I've relaxed more back into the normal way the way that I was feeling very safe flying. And I remind myself of that particular experience, because it's sort of like events too, where you can be really cool and casual and that's probably going to bring you undone. but you can also be like super concerned and hyper vigilant and hyper worried about every aspect. And then that can bring you undone. So it's trying to find that balance, I think, for me, around just that risk aspect in managing events.
I really like that you have that person to bounce off. I have a similar process in terms of the tech, the AV, that kind of thing, because it's not an area that I particularly want to spend a lot of time learning about. But I also don't like to abdicate decisions. I like to have enough knowledge, or at least have had some conversations around things so I know that what I'm being offered is what I need in
Yes.
terms of that space as well. So yeah, I have a little network of people that I can call on to go, this is what my program looks like. This is the quote I've had from the venue for the AV. Do I need all of this?
Yes.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
oftentimes it's so expensive and you've got no idea. You've got no clue whether you need all of those things that are being offered to you. And I'm not saying venues are trying to gouge people or anything like that, but I just like to know what's necessary, what's a nice to have, and what's a without
Yeah.
this, I don't
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah, and I think from an AV perspective, I've got the same, actually different person, but I've got exactly the same, and I'm really lucky. But on the other side of that, I also, because of my work with this one particular AV tech, I'm acutely aware of the fact that you can think of everything the client might need from an AV perspective, particularly for a conference where, despite having spoken to speakers and presenters a million times before, they still just don't give you what you need until the final moment.
No.
Not all of them, but just sometimes that happens. And invariably it's the one person that didn't give you what you needed. They give it to you on the day when you've got a million people who need to see you, to speak to you, and what they've given you now provides tech challenge. And this is where it's why it's so important to have trust between yourself and your suppliers and work with sort of a regular team of people, because you can then say to them, look, you've relied on the fact that they've anticipated that they may have to throw a different chord in, and they shouldn't have to throw that different chord in without being compensated for their work either.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting navigation around that. And I think you can, definitely a person who prefers to work regularly with the same people, which rather than be determined purely by budget. And I know that there are some people who don't have those alliances or those relationships, and they don't want to build those relationships with people. They'll just go, no, I want a cold-hearted quote. And I'm always really nervous in events with working with someone new, particularly for something really high tech, because you don't know, like, as much as you know somebody's good at something and that's amazing, that's what you rely on, you actually also know where they're a little bit not so good as well. And so that's okay too. So yeah, those relationships are really interesting and really important. And I guess that's probably why I just didn't have the energy to rebuild that. And that's what I knew that I would have to do, which is why going back to the beginning of the conversation, I didn't really put myself out there and go, okay, I'm here. This is what I'm good at. Who needs it? And and I just couldn't rebuild that team. I just didn't have the energy for that.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, isn't it? That because it's just kind of dawned on me that I've got to the point now in my career where I'm considering whether I'm self-employed or I have a company or I'm a freelancer. I'm not sure which of those things I am. And each of them has a different status symbol to me. And I think it's really interesting what we call ourselves. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same kind of work. But so what do you call yourself now?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I don't know actually, because I agree with you. It's tricky to kind of navigate, but I guess because I don't put myself out there. I don't really need to have a definition. So, I mean, my husband and I have a company, and so if I'm invoicing a client, that's what I use. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm the same. I'm the same. I have a proprietary limited company.
Yep.
Yeah, that everything runs through. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting.
Yeah, and like in terms of say creating a profile or an events business, I've kind of been there, done that. So I didn't really think, and now that I've got a really strong set of other tools as well, I don't know if somebody said to me, okay, let's start a business, we've got this great space, and what are you going to specialize in? I wouldn't do it as an event space. I would actually, typical me, I would go way too big, but I think I'd have to consider bringing in all of the other experience that I've got and
Yeah.
bring that tourism, comms, media, hospitality, all of it
Yeah.
as a full service agency. I think that's probably what I would, if I was going to do that, that's how I would do it.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That sounds like a lot to me. I think about that sometimes and think, oh gosh, that's a lot of that's a lot to do.
It is. No, look, it is definitely, but I think that if I was going to do it in another way, I'd probably feel like I've already done that. And for whatever reason, life took me into down different
Yeah.
roads. So yeah, if that, yeah, 100%. I probably never verbalized that before or quantified that, but definitely that's what I would do. It would be a full service agency with all of those things. Public relations and commercial lighting design are definitely two things that I
Okay.
100% wish that I had have specialized in as well. So yeah, they're way too late for me now, but yes.
It's never too late. Never too
Yeah.
late. But yeah,
Oh,
definitely there things that I looked at PR a long time ago and considered kind of entering into that field. But again, there's so much pressure to deliver results, I think. And
yeah.
they're you can't quantify results in PR. Like it's not whether it works or not. I think it's very hard to, I don't know, set a system in place to improve the outcome all the time. I know there's good PR people and not so good PR people, but I just think if it was me, I'd feel like I was under so much pressure to get the outcome that was expected. And of course, I would have exceptional expectations on it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I often find it fascinating as to why one particular reel on social media goes viral.
Yeah.
So when you look at
I
a
agree.
platform, an influence, generally it's somebody with some level of like some decent level of following, and then all of a sudden they post this one reel that is completely similar to their other content. There doesn't seem to be anything uniquely different from their content, uniquely different from everyone else's, but uniquely different from theirs. And all of a sudden they've gone from 10,000, 20,000 views to 1.3 million. And I find that really fascinating that what was it in that reel that just resonated with people.
Nothing.
So
We're at the behest of the platform. There's nothing
I,
in the real. It's all the same. The platform just decided it was going to show your thing to more people, I think.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating time. So I definitely agree with you. And look, probably me saying that it would be full service, it's way easier than actually making that happen. But yeah, I really don't think that I would open an agency I wouldn't just hang my shingle out again as events because I moved away from it from a reason. And yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a great conversation for us to now share with our listeners. I think we've covered a lot of things in what it's like to be a freelancer in this space, to work in events as an independent professional. I think we've covered a lot there, Nadine. I think it's going to be really interesting for our listeners. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, yeah, and probably we could talk for hours.
We could. Would
Yeah.
you like to follow you anywhere? Would you like people to follow you anywhere, or you're happy to stay where you are there in Tassie and just
Yep.
waiting for us to all come visit you at
Yeah.
Mofa?
Yeah, no, very happy with status quo. Yeah. Yeah. I know it seems so I think I just was so ambitious when I was younger that I don't yeah, and then maybe the ambition was a measure of success for me, and I don't need that anymore. I have a beautiful husband, two amazing, amazing children, and a beautiful family, and surrounded by friends, and I'm actually mostly pretty good at what I do, and I'm pretty happy with that. So
Yeah, no, that's lovely. Sounds like you've landed in a really nice place, which is great.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. Thank you, thanks, Sally.
For anyone that is thinking about freelancing or going out on their own, starting a small business, or they're trying to do it as a side hustle, hopefully this episode has helped you. And of course, reach out to us if you've got any things that you want to brainstorm. So thanks, Nadine. Really appreciated having you on the podcast and you sharing your experience. And yes, let's have another conversation again sometime soon.
Thank you for having me, Sally.
While we ended our official conversation here, we continued chatting, and I wanted to add this in as a PS because I think it too is really interesting to continue this conversation. I hope you'll agree and I hope you'll enjoy. Yeah, no, definitely will do. I think this will be good though. I'll be publishing this. I think there's not enough conversations out there for people to listen into. It rolled out exactly how I wanted it to roll out. So
Perfect.
hopefully you'll be happy with it. I think it's interesting to listen in on other people's experience. Both of us have a lot of experience. We're a long time in the industry. Imagine your 30-year-old self listening to our conversation. I think you'd find it really interesting.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. I think that the landscape of events has changed huge amount, and that particularly that risk side, it's just and that governance side. I think all the compliance has been particularly for the one of the events that I'm working on. This is my fourth one, and I don't really count the first one, although I have in that count. The first one I had like 30 days, I think. So really all I did was just make sure it was delivered safely and then kind of stepped back and went, okay, that's no, yes, no,
Yeah.
yes, wow, no way, all that sort of stuff. But so really in my mind, this third one coming up at the end of the year is kind of, it's the fourth one, but in my mind, I'm kind of thinking of it as the third one. First one, I started to the same theme. Second one, obviously, I really could see that new vision coming through. And now this kind of third one is just sort of nailing that. But also on my own, limited hours allocated, doing way more. But my husband's always saying, like, why are you putting so much in? And I'm like, oh, it's like high road. Like, I've got to feel really proud and comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Even if the client doesn't necessarily have that full expectation. Obviously, they want safe, no doubt. But or they have the expectation, they don't generally have the understanding. I think someone said to me on a working group, look, what we're thinking is if we cut the budget by 30% for 3 years, then but there's no expectation that you deliver to the level that you normally do. And then we'll ramp it up again. And I actually just very, very professionally just said, that won't happen. It can't happen. I've just spent the last 3 years rebuilding the reputation. And the expectation now is that people come and they expect a certain level. You can't communicate with dialed back on the budget. Like that's impossible. So I think that those extra elements are all very interesting as well.
Yes, indeed. Loved hanging out with you, Nadine. We'll do it again soon for sure.
Sounds good.
Please stay in touch.
Thanks, Sally. Take care.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.